I am here to talk to you today about some things that I don't want to do in my garden anymore, and I have a feeling you can relate. Hi you guys, this is Nicole from My Carolina Garden. My garden is in growing zone 8B and I am in Southeastern North Carolina. Because I have a feeling you can relate, I thought this was a very productive and worthwhile conversation to have with you. The very first thing that I don't want to do in my garden anymore, maybe you want to reconsider this for your garden as well. I want to stop buying onesie, twosie plants. One of this, one of that, maybe two of that. This year, I am going to be buying and planting multiple of a single item. And why do I want to do this? I don't think that having one of a single plant is impactful enough. The whole thing here is I want to make a beautiful garden that I can appreciate. Yes, the people that I invite over can appreciate, but in the cases of even my front gardens where neighbors and passers-by can look and see what I'm doing and creating, I want it to be a show, a focal point, something that they say, oh, it looks so glorious. One plant in particular I can think of is a pincushion. I have one pincushion plant, which is just not enough for that plant to be impactful. And I have the bad habit of saying, oh, well, if something's on sale, oh, like in the spring, a whole bunch of things will be on sale. I'll buy one of that, one of that, one of that, so I can have a variety, but I want impact. So this year is going to be about impact. Something else I really want to do differently this year in the garden. I want to stop doing everything the hard way. I feel like it's in my nature to do things the hard way. And this might mean I don't have the most newfangled tools, for example, and I work harder at an item like with physical labor or something like that. That's one example. Having the right tool for a gardening job is huge, but also any ways in which we can save time doing the tasks we're going to do anyway, I think is also huge, because time is extremely valuable. As we all know, we are busy, busy people. So here's some thoughts. Trying to break apart a root ball of a plant that has just, oh my gosh, it's like concrete sometimes getting into that big mess of roots. If I had, at the time that I was really struggling to do a job like this, a hori-hori knife, which a lot of people were like, oh, you need to get one of those, it would have been life-changing. So I asked for one for Christmas. I received one and it is life-changing already, and we haven't even hit the main part of the growing season yet. So a tool like that, invaluable. Something else. I'm not getting any younger, so carrying around heavy things like even just a big potted plant that needs to get now from indoors to outdoors because it's about to be spring. I really needed my own dedicated hand truck because I was struggling dragging things around, sliding things around on the property or whatever if I couldn't get someone to lend me a hand. But I asked for a hand truck for Christmas as well, which I also received. And the hand truck is like foldable, so I can like hang it in the shed and it's easy to just tuck away into some spot. But unfortunately, the hand truck I had previously wasn't that way, so I just didn't even go for it. I left it alone. It was like too much work to go get the piece of equipment that I needed to make my job easier. You know what I mean? Or how about this one? When you struggle unloading multiple bags of mulch, and when I say multiple bags, I mean I have been known to buy a whole pallet worth of bagged mulch at a time, which is 75 bags. And we fill our pickup truck up with this humongous tower of mulch bags, when really it's like, how about I just get a mulch delivery and then I just cart it around at my leisure instead of having to unpack this huge tower of bags from the back of my truck. So I'm thinking about things differently this year. I don't want to keep doing things the hard way. I want to work smarter and not harder and still have a glorious garden. Oh my gosh, you guys are gonna laugh at me for this one. You know how I propagate so many things, and I always say, if you can give it a try and see if you can get something to root and propagate, great, you should definitely do it. I'm still sticking with that. However, there are some things that I have tried to propagate that just take way too much patience, and sometimes I'm like, dang, I could have bought a plant for $8 instead of spending 3 months or more trying to get this thing to work and it's not working. My example of something that I cannot get to root, even though other people say they can, croton. Nope, It is not working for me. I've tried rooting croton in soil and in water. I've taken clippings, I've removed leaves, I've left leaves, all the things. I cannot get croton to root at all. I'm gonna say I'm not doing anything wrong just because I root plenty of other things. That one's too frustrating. So it's like, forget it. Next time, if I want more croton in my life, I just have to go ahead and buy the plant. I can't keep pushing a rock uphill and expecting great results. Sometimes, again, that time is so valuable that it's worth just spending the initial outlay of money on the plant itself and not taking so much time to try to propagate something. Now look, that's not to say that I'm not still going to propagate the easy things like coleus or ivy or something like that. Those things that I can root in water like this, sweet potato vine, I'm going to keep doing it because I can definitely get way more bang for my buck out of just rooting cuttings. Absolutely. But these harder things, I'm done. I can't keep at it. It's like too much. Yet another thing I have to stop doing in my garden is planting high maintenance plants. If a plant requires too much deadheading or staking or pest maintenance, I don't want it. That to me is what we call a diva plant. I don't want any diva plants in my garden because I have lots of gardens. I have lots more gardens that I want to create. And so I like to stick with my tried and true babies, my gorgeous perennials that get bigger and I can divide and move. And yeah, I definitely want to try new things, as I said, planting in drifts and that sort of thing. But if any plant is known to have really bad like pest problems or whatever, I'm just not into it. I'm just not into it. Another thing I don't want to do in my garden is overwater. In the past, I've been a hand watering queen and one of those people that put in an hour and a half at a clip to hand water my yard. Last year, I was able to luckily get some drip irrigation in my life, and that has saved me tons and tons and tons of time. However, be kind to yourself and realize that you have to make adjustments. You put your drip irrigation in, it's not all done right away. You have to sometimes make adjustments so that you're not still overwatering with your drip irrigation and spending a ton of money on water. So now, drip irrigation, getting that dialed in so I am not overwatering my garden. That's number one. I also want to choose plants that require less water. I want more lavender in my gardens, for example. They don't like a lot of water, and that's great for me because I'm trying to conserve on my water. If I'm adding new plants into my garden, I am going to make sure that they are on my drip irrigation because I really don't want to worry about having to hand water this while my drip irrigation's over here, and it's just way too much to think about. So watering and lessening my water consumption for this year is definitely something that's on my list. Soil. Oh my goodness. Back in the day, my very early days of gardening, we're going back probably 25 years, I really didn't worry about soil at all, and I was blessed, without realizing it at the time, that I just had naturally good soil where I lived. And so it didn't even occur to me that I'd have to amend my soil or I'd have to fertilize all the time to get something to live. That just wasn't my life. Here in coastal North Carolina, I have the opposite life. I have the opposite soil experience. This soil needs amending. I need to fertilize, like routinely need to fertilize. And the other thing, I got a compost bin also for Christmas. You see, I made my Christmas list this year based on things that I really wanted to make my gardening life easier, because gardening is means so much to me. I currently have a bunch of soil being made in there that I'll be able to use in the garden this year. Thinking that I can garden without worrying about the soil was a mistake that I made before, but I will not be making that gardening mistake this year. And finally, choosing plants that maybe other people say are the best plants ever for my garden, thinking that because they're the best for them, they're going to be the best for me. Maybe that goes with a gardening trend. You see some trend, someone says this is the best thing ever, do it, and you try it and you realize it doesn't work for you. Okay, my example here is petunias. There are some people that will say forever, like, oh, I hear bubblegum vista petunias, right? Or like the end all be all plant and how plentiful and awesome they are and they bloom forever. That's so wonderful for the people that have that experience. I don't have that experience here. I am full sun. All my gardens are full sun. I live in the South, so we are talking about brutal heat. And with the full sun and the brutal heat and all of that, the petunias just don't love it here. So even if I get petunias to live for a certain period of time, like say in the spring, they don't want to live here in the summer anymore. They're done, they're tired, they're petering out. It turns out that they're a waste of money for me because they are not going to be top performers in my garden. So make choices for yourself that are based on what you love, what performs well for you, what is based on your yard and your garden and your growing conditions instead. And I've said this before and I will say it again, Dipladenia is my replacement flower for the petunia because Dipladenia for me is a tropical style plant. Yes, so it won't work for everybody. I do overwinter it though. It doesn't stay out in the garden all year, but it is a saturated color plant. I mean, oh my gosh, it is so vibrant. Tons of blooms all the time. I mean, yeah, I fertilize it, but it gives me a great show all the time. In the heat, in the full sun, all the conditions that I have, the Dipladenia has made it. Like that is my star plant. So find out what your star is or what works best for you instead of following somebody else like me. Don't follow me for a Dipladenia if you really don't think that's going to work for you, you know? So the lesson learned into that in particular is what works for some doesn't work for all. So don't think you have to follow what everybody else is doing. You definitely don't. Hopefully these little lessons and tidbits helped you because again, we're coming up on spring right now. So we want to think about as many things to make our garden successful and prosperous and fully blooming and just as awesome as we possibly can for this upcoming year. Keep some of these tips in mind because they were not just made for me, they were made for you as well. So we can all learn and we can all grow together. Thank you again for watching. Thank you for the support. And until next time, you guys, happy planting.